Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hallmark Guy podcast. I'm Baptiste, the Hallmark Guy, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by the director of Snowbound for the holidays, Christopher Giroux, to joining me on the podcast. Hello, Christopher.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. We watched the movie now a little more than a week ago. Really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that we get to now talk about the movie with all in mind and how it looks and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on to chat about it.
Yeah, so before we get into questions about the movie, I like to know what got my guests in like the movie industry, what got you interested. And looking at your IMDb, I see that you have produced and directed and executive produced as well.
Mhm.
What made you interested in the film industry in general? And then we can dive into those three roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as far back as I remember, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I have fond memories of playing with little action figures and toys and things as a child, and almost recreating like little scenes and things from movies. And I was always very into movies, growing up, and I don't think that I've had a job in my whole life that hasn't touched movies in some sort of way. I've worked when I was in high school. I worked at a movie theater and a video store, and then later went on tour and did live events and things like that. So I've always kind of touched the entertainment industry in some sort of way, whether it was serving popcorn or putting VHSs back on a shelf. But I've kind of always kind of dabbled within in movie making. So yeah.
Okay. And so you have produced, executive produced, and directed. Can you explain it a little bit? What's the difference between the three roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of working at a company called Vortex Productions. I was there for just over 6.5 years and stepped down last summer. Snowbound for the holidays, Oh Little Christmas Market, all those fell under while I was at Vortex. And so I think that there's such a wide variety of different producers that you'll probably see in credits, whether it's executive producer, co-producer, just producer, associate producer, and everyone kind of has a variation of kind of
Mhm.
what they kind of do. I think really like producing as a whole is really someone who's with the film from beginning to end. So often those producers are either working with writers to kind of find concepts or maybe find scripts. They're really championing the casting, hiring the director, kind of with the project from kind of inception all the way to kind of airing. And so, different producers within those categories have different roles. Some producers like to be on set. Some producers are more kind of creative producers that are kind of overlooking things. And so I've gotten the pleasure of kind of wearing a kind of different hats within the production kind of office. I like to say that I'm a producer who does like to be actively involved. I love to be on set. I love, you'll often see me as a producer being on set, decorating a Christmas tree with the art team, if they allow it, of course, or
Yeah.
helping them with string lights and things like that. I just like the really hands-on approach, and so, and then of course the director's role is kind of the shepherd of all of that. They have people that he's working with or they're working with, various departments to kind of find that creative vision, that kind of through line of the project, and making sure that the elements that are in the script are being shot in kind of a creative, kind of fun way. And so it's fun to kind of wear different hats. And I
Yeah.
think that throughout my career, I've gotten to work in camera and lighting, and I've gotten to work in a little bit of sound and kind of various roles. And so I think it gives me a good well-rounding. I love knowing what other people do, and I love collaborating with other partners and other departments, whether it's as a producer or as a director.
Yeah. I love that when they get you on a set, you can help like produce, direct, and decorate a Christmas tree. I love that. That's
Absolutely.
that's great. And do you have a favorite role? I know that's probably tough to decide, but is
Yeah,
there
it's
one you're
it's tough to say. I think the best part of the job as a whole, whether it's a producer or a director, my favorite part is the collaboration. I love working, with the production designer, with the sound team, with the stunt team, which we got to do with on Snowbound.
Mhm.
Really kind of working with the different departments and seeing how we can all kind of elevate the project. And sometimes it's a little tricky about how to bring a scene to life or how to bring like a piece of that film. In reality, you read it on a page, there's 3 sentences, but it's going down a hill with ski poles that aren't working. It's trying to find the best, safest, and coolest way to kind of bring that shot together. So I love working with all the other departments, and that kind of think tank is really exciting for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that Snowbound for the Holidays fell for under the previous
Yeah.
production company you were at.
Yeah.
Um, how did you get involved in the projects? Did they say, "Hey, we want you to direct that one"? How did that did you
Yeah,
start?
I was there for 6.5 years.
Mhm,
And so I got to work on a lot of different projects while I was there,
mhm,
whether it was Christmas projects or romance movies, a couple more, maybe traditional narrative features as well, a couple thrillers.
mhm,
And so had been so actively involved in the producing and really looking to find a project that I could direct, if the timing all lined up.
yeah,
And the company brought me Snowbound, and I thought it was so great. One of the co-writers, friends with both the writers, obviously Tim and Courtney, but Courtney and I are very, very close. We've been at each other's wedding, and her husband is one of my best friends, and so it really felt like a great synergy project to kind of collaborate on together. So I was really grateful for the opportunity.
yeah. You mentioned Christmas movies, romance movies. Was it something that you liked watching before you started working on those, or is it something you discovered kind of when you
I
started
think
it?
it was a bit of both. I think that I was really I'm really a big fan of Christmas. I think coming into this genre, I didn't know as much about it as I do now, though I do love, movies like Love Actually and, those types of kind of romantic kind of Christmas films.
Mhm,
But I hadn't dived as deep into kind of this genre as much before getting into it.
mhm,
And I have to say I'm so in love with this genre. I think that this genre to me is so special. I met my wife making a TV movie, and Purvu. We did a film called Learning to Love Again, and that's how we met. But it has brought me so much joy, and I think that going back to when I wanted to start to become a filmmaker when I was a child, I was such a big Star Wars fan or Marvel
mhm,
fan. And I think that this genre is so much of that. There's such strong fandom, there's such strong enthusiasm, there's a culture to the films. There's fan engagement. We have Comic Cons on the Marvel world. We have meet and greets on the Hallmark world with these with the stars and stuff. And I think the culture behind the genre has really touched my heart, and I really fell in love with it year after year and project after project, because I think the fans and the community and the audience is so vocal. And
mhm.
as a creator, that's the dream, is to have people want to watch your film and want to participate or want to take it further and really invest time into seeing all these films. And so when I was coming into the genre, I was new, and now I'm very protective of the genre, and I think it's a very special group, and a very an amazing supportive community, which I think as time goes on, that sense of community is more and more important, and mirrors a lot of the community based themes that these films often deal with. So.
Yeah, I love the connection you made with like Marvel and Star Wars because it's true that I'm in the Kansas City area and we have the Hallmark Christmas experience
Mhm.
every
Yeah,
Christmas. It is our own Comic Con. You're right. Like
absolutely.
I love the connection you made.
Yeah.
It's great. So this is not your first time working with Hallmark. To give the watchers some context, you executive produced another 2026 Christmas in July movie, O Little Christmas Market that you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, and as well as the Christmas Charade, and you have produced Christmas Island and Christmas in Toyland, among others. How did the collaboration with Hallmark start in general, and then we can get into for Snowbound in specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, I was at a company called Vortex, and
Mhm,
they're a company up in Canada that produces a lot of great movies. And I think that sometimes those movies are produced as acquisitions, and sometimes those movies are produced as direct
Hmm.
connections with Hallmark. And so the titles that you listed were kind of a handful of different variations of that. Some
Hmm.
were straight acquisitions, and others were kind of collaborations with Hallmark.
Hmm.
Christmas Island was a real big collaboration between Hallmark and between Vortex and Andrew and Rachel, and the province of Nova Scotia. And so it was a real amazing kind of collaborative kind of effort. And then there's other films that are more kind of straight acquisitions where Hallmark is involved in say a lighter touch or kind of a different area. So I think what was great with this genre is that no two films are the same often, and they always come with kind of different working collaborations, and sometimes there's other broadcasting partners involved too, because that film might air in another part of the world where the Hallmark Channel isn't available. So it's interesting, kind of all working together. I know it's been a beat since we made Snowbound for the holidays. And I'm not sure the whole path. I was on a transitional period of my life at that time too, so I'm not sure the exact mechanics of how Snowbound came to be, but or how and when Hallmark got involved. But I'm so glad they did, because it was an incredible labor of love, the film, and I really do think that the cast and what the crew was able to put on stage was and on screen was really electrifying. So I'm glad that Hallmark and the Hallmark audience resonated with it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so how is it working with Hallmark? Like, is there a specific number of Christmas lights per shot that you have to respect or something for
Yeah,
Christmassy?
I think the amazing thing is that there's definitely been, and even I think earlier in my career, as was kind of shared some lore about
Hmm.
how much Christmas decorations or Christmas in every frame, or, all these kind of
Hmm.
different kind of things. I think the amazing thing about what Hallmark does and what puts out, and along with other networks as well,
Hmm.
is about authenticity, and I think that, trying to find an elegant way into the scene is always the most important. And if the scene calls for more lights, that's great. And if
Hmm.
it's just a couple lights that really kind of maybe enhance a romantic moment, then they're very open to that as well. I think it's just about finding what's right for the film. The way I approach these films, whether it was as a producer or as a director, I think of it as the world I wish I lived in. And I think, to me, that's the overarching theme of all these movies. I think that
Hmm.
we all wish, in a sense, or a part of us live in an area where we're so friendly with our neighbor that the mayor knows our name, that there's a Christmas ball the whole town attends, that there's a real sense of community and
Hmm.
passion, and everyone works together, and everyone looks fantastic, and everyone has a beautiful dress and a stunning suit, and they drive a cool car.
Hmm.
I think this idea of it's one step a fantasy and one step what I would like the world to see. And I
Hmm.
think that, these movies tend to operate in a bit of the snow globe. And I
Hmm.
think what is amazing, where the audience has kind of led this, is that now it's a hybrid of not just fantasy, but more grounded characters, and trying to find that balance of realism and also a little Christmas magic. And I think that, companies like Hallmark and broadcasters like Hallmark really will love that feeling, and I think that they've been such phenomenal partners to work with over the years because of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It looked like, talking about Christmas lights, the lights with the snow, it looked very magical. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to be there.
Yeah,
So
you want to be there. You want to
yeah.
be, we got to shoot Snowbound for the holidays with real snow
Hmm.
in real winter months, which
Yeah.
doesn't often happen.
Hmm.
And though extremely cold when we were shooting it, I think the
Hmm.
texture of, seeing the actor's breath and seeing real snow, hearing that crunch when they walk on it, like
Yeah.
that makes it even more grounded, and it makes it even more, feel real.
Hmm. Yeah. Talking about location and snow, where I like knowing all the behind the
Of
scenes. Like,
course.
where and when did you shoot like Snowbound for the Holidays? I think you mentioned it was a little while ago.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was we shot it in the winter of 2015.
Ooh.
In February of 2015. And we shot it at a real kind of snow hill, ski hill,
Hmm.
real resort, and which is typically a summer resort.
Hmm.
But a real resort, real log cabins in northern Ontario and northern Canada, where lots of snow, real ski hills. I think
Hmm.
that what was, really exciting for me as a director and filmmaker was trying to find ways to really bring the audience on the journey,
Hmm.
and really have them feel that they are attending this ski lodge. And so shooting with real snow, shooting on real ski mountains, really tobogganing, real skiing, the really lighting the lanterns, really letting them off into the sky, doing all these things, practically, and finding a space that will allow us to kind of do that all practically. And so we shot in a small town called Mattawa, Ontario, and they had a real ski hill and a river resort and things like that. So we were able to kind of base the film there and kind of use that as kind of our base camp.
Yeah. So you said 2015, 11 years ago you shot?
Sorry,
Oh,
2025,
okay.
not 2015, 2025.
Yeah.
Just last winter. Yeah. So
Okay.
it feels it definitely maybe felt like 10, 15 years ago, but no, it was shot in the winter of
Okay.
2025. Sorry about
Because I
that.
was
Yeah.
like, no one has changed in 11
No
years
one
if
has
that's the
aged a
case.
day. We've kept them
Yeah.
all frozen
Yeah.
in Snow Hill. No, it was
They
just
stayed there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was just last year.
Yeah. And so we know that these type of movies have a very tight production schedule. Like, how
Mhm.
many days did you shoot the movie?
Yeah, I think it was 13 or 14 days. Very, very ambitious, especially trying to do everything so practically.
Hmm.
Uh, but I'm we have an amazing first AD, Aaron Duncan, who put together this amazing schedule that we were able to kind of keep and still kind of give time to the scenes that matter. So it felt very quick, but there was a lot of prep that went into making sure we could kind of hit those goals, and an amazing cast that just came in so ready to work and so ready to play and explore their characters. So it made it easy for sure, or
Hmm.
easier, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like you mentioned, everything is just like one in. It's just not different parts of different ends that you put together to pretend it's one in, and like the ski slopes are
Yeah,
right outside.
for the most part, all of the inn was
Yeah.
one place, and
Okay.
then we went to when they're skiing or when they're putting together the Christmas tree.
Hmm.
That's all kind of a different place as well.
Okay.
So we kind of used a couple different places to kind of stitch together one larger resort.
Mm.
Our main kind of resort area and where the main lodge is and the lobby, the pathways and things like that were all at this kind of river resort, kind of this
Mhm.
kind of I don't want to call it a summer camp, but kind of like an adult summer camp
Yeah.
actually. And then just down the road was an actual ski hill with a real ski lift and a bunny hill, which we kind of used as our tobogganing hill. And so we were able to kind of piece the lodge together and make sure that we had the right texture and that everything kind of felt as if it was all kind of one piece.
Hmm. Yeah. And like you said, it was shot during real winter, which
Mhm.
for the story makes sense, and it looks so much better in a way because you see the fog coming out of their
Mhm.
mouths and all that. But was it always like we have to shoot in winter, or did you have at some point maybe we'll use fake snow and we'll
Yeah,
figure it
I
out that
think
way?
because I was so used to shooting a lot of these in the winter, I mean the summer,
Hmm.
like Christmas Island, for example, was all shot in summer months. And the snow teams are so fantastic, and
Hmm.
there's so many different ways to kind of have fake snow, whether it's like a blanket, it looks like a large cotton ball, but it looks like a
Yeah.
bed sheet. There's also this kind of like shaved potato trick
Hmm.
that kind of gives it the texture. And then on Christmas Island, we used like real ice machines. We were pushing large cubes of ice through this like almost like blender, and it was like shooting out real snow. And so it did have real snow. It would just melt in a couple of minutes and then you'd have to kind of do it again. So
Yeah.
there's so many kind of different ways to kind of do
Hmm.
the snow trick. I think that the amazing thing about having real snow and shooting during that time of year is you really get those like very wide shots.
Hmm.
You can really feel the space.
Yeah.
Often you're shooting in the summer and in, say, like a cul-de-sac where you might not be able to dress like everybody's house. So you're kind of filming maybe 2 or 3 houses that look dressed. We asked the town of Mattawa, even though we shot in February, to keep all the Christmas decorations up. And the town beautifully agreed, and so kept their Christmas decorations, I think, up till March 3rd in the
Wow.
downtown city. So we could still shoot those wides and kind of feel that all the stores and shops and stuff were beautifully dressed and stuff. So it's great to kind of be able to kind of go in and not be restricted to say, just over here is an apple tree and a patio where someone's sitting in a t-shirt. It was great
Yeah.
that, if there was someone, walking in the background or walking down the main street, they were wearing a winter coat too. So it all kind of
Mhm.
made sense in that world.
Yeah, yeah, and I posted on Instagram that I love that you could see like the actor's breath, and
Yeah,
Kate Drummond commented that it was very, very cold.
it was
So
very
how
cold.
difficult made it was to shoot, and like I don't know how what the temperature was, but like
I
something
think there
pretty
was
cold.
a day that it was close to -40, for sure, especially at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tremendously cold and very snowy time. I
Mm,
think that what everyone was really bound together by was that we have an opportunity to make like a really authentic snowy movie. And so that was kind of our true North Star going through this, whether you were cast or crew, was that not a lot of these types of films have the opportunity to kind of shoot with the level of snow we have and to
mm,
do a lot of these things practically. Often you'll see maybe some green screen and things to kind of pull some of these effects off. We have actors sitting in tubes, going down hills, and that would only be able to achieve that with real snow and a real temperature that
mm.
low. So though it was extremely cold, I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a band of heroes, both in front of and behind the camera, that were able to kind of pull that off. But it was very, very cold.
Yeah, it looked like it, but it made it even better on to
For
look at
sure.
on the screen. And you kind of segued into my next question because I wanted to talk about there are a few physical scenes in the movie with the snow
Mhm.
tubing and skiing, and I always
Mhm.
wonder how they're shot. Like you mentioned the green screen, and here you mentioned the actors are really like on the snow tubes and
Yeah.
skiing as well.
Yeah, we had some doubles for some shots as well, just to for everybody's
Mm,
safety. But and I think it was revealed on other podcasts, so I'm not leaking this. But Vanessa was also pregnant during the filming of the movie. And so, there was a few of us that found out during filming some of those scenes to make sure that she was safe and comfortable, obviously during those scenes as well. But
yeah.
those she was really game, and she's really great with kind of physical comedy and really kind of playing that fish out of water character. and
Mhm,
and Marcus grew up in Alberta, which is a very snowy province in Canada, and so everyone was really excited and game to kind of do some of these practically. I had a vision jokingly going into making this movie over Christmas before shooting it, where I was watching ski movies and things like that, and I stumbled upon an old James Bond movie on Her
mhm,
Majesty's Secret Service, and it was clearly a screen, and people were skiing in front of this large screen, and I had this like, oh man, like it can't look like that. It has
yeah.
to it has to be so much realer than that. And we were so fortunate that one of our camera operators is a professional skier. So all this, because a lot of people think about the actors in front of the camera, and they have these poles, and they're
Mhm,
doing skiing. What our camera operator had to do was, because she's holding the camera, she did all the skiing with no poles and holding the camera to follow the actors.
mhm.
And she's a professional skier, and was amazing on getting those shots and following everyone together. And so it took a lot of kind of work to kind of block out the shots with our amazing cinematographer Stephen Whitehead, and a mixture of drone shots and skiing shots and things like that to kind of build these sequences. But I really wanted to bring everyone doing that. I think that what was so fun was, typically adults don't get to go tobogganing unless there's children around. And I think what was so playful with Marcus and Vanessa's energy was that you could see them throughout the scene, kind of like, being normal adults who were skiing or tubing, and then through this kind of actually doing it, becoming more and more comfortable and more playful with it, and kind of almost reminiscing about when they were kids tobogganing and playing in snow and stuff. And it really was amazing to have the actors do it for real, because
Mhm.
of course then they're trying to bump into each other's tubes and they're trying to have a lot of fun with it. And they were both so hands-on with kind of building that scene and making it come to life.
Yeah, the tobogganing is one of my favorite scenes in movie, and I remember thinking, if that's a green screen, that's the best green screen I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was all done for real.
Oh,
It was
for real?
real
Yeah.
custom tubes, and we, even our production designer went to go as far as to get tube covers that were red and green. Those tubes come black.
Yeah.
And but we wanted a little Christmas flair, so she was able to kind of get these kind of custom covers to make sure that we had our red and greens there on the snow hill, and it really helped pop on the kind of the white real snow and stuff. So it was lots of
Yeah.
fun.
Love knowing that because you think, oh yeah, they're red and green Christmas, but you don't think they were black at first, and
They were
then
black
they're
at first. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And so we wanted to kind of infuse a little pop of color there on the snow
Mhm.
hill. So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of the of that scene, because I kept thinking watching it must have taken so much work and so many takes because you have to have them with the camera to shoot their face, and then you have a shot with you see them, so you can't see the
Mm.
camera on that one. How long was it shooting those scenes?
We had a very small period of time to shoot it, so we had to repeat again and again.
Mhm.
And additionally, there was some pending hail and snow and rain on that day. And once everything's too icy, the tubes don't actually work. You'd think they
Oh,
would work better on
yeah.
ice, but they're designed to not hit ice. They're designed to just cruise on snow. And so, it was starting to rain more and more, and we had to reset. And we ended up linking the two tubes together, having
Mhm.
one actor in the top tube and the camera operator in the second tube. And then we were kind of pulling them down the hill in different shots and things like that. So it was really great to kind of, some practical tubing, some us, we were just pulling them on a rope and kind of creating the sequence. And then, of course, we had to do it the wide. So we all had to kind of get out of the shot and kind of shoot a big wide shot of them so we can
Yeah.
kind of feel that as well. So yeah, it was all done in an afternoon, I think, all said and done.
Okay. And for the skiing, was it Vanessa's also first time kind of skiing? So there was real reactions, or did she put like a really great performance and pretended not to know how to ski?
Yeah, it was a mixture. When we did the skiing, we had a kind of a double as
Hmm.
well, and we had, both the actors when they have their close-ups,
Hmm.
they're actually on an extended snowmobile. And so we're sitting facing them, shooting
Hmm.
into them, and they're kind of on the snowmobile, and that's why he can adjust his goggles and take them
Hmm.
on and off and things. And so we had a sequence on the back of the snowmobile where we both shot them. Then we had our real actors kind of come and kind of establish that it's them coming off the ski lift. Both of them, I think, had a little skiing, but I don't think that they were, big skiers. I myself, not a big skier, so very fortunate to have the stunt doubles and the doubles and things as well. What we were fortunate with, even with our doubles, is that we hired people that worked at that ski resort as the
Hmm.
doubles. So they knew the hills and the path and the snow very well. So we were able to kind of create that. And then, of course, when they kind of slam into each other as well, kind of building that sequence out to have kind of Vanessa come down and then kind of them kind of fall into each other.
Yeah. Yeah. As someone who skied for maybe 13 years but hated it and wasn't good at it, I was like, she's
Sure.
doing better than me on her first try. So,
She had a good teacher. She had a good teacher.
yeah. And so you worked with Hallmark veterans on this movie, people who have made a lot of TV movies and movies for Hallmark. How much freedom do you like to give the actors? Like, are you someone who sticks closely to the script, or do you like to encourage improvisation, or if
Yeah,
something feels
absolutely.
natural?
I have a technique where we like to play the scene once for the romance,
Hmm.
once for the comedy, and then once for what the actors have kind of imagined in their minds. And sometimes we play with that order,
Hmm.
because that way there's a lot of different plays. And I think that when you look at a performer like Marcus and Vanessa, who have done so much in the genre, not tapping into that, I felt would be undervaluing the performances that they
Mhm.
bring. So they were both so intricate with creating their characters, how their dynamics worked, how their energies worked. Marcus is a little bit more of a stoic man. Vanessa is a little bit more of a fish out of water woman. Those kind of energies naturally have a lot of fun, and then they really got to kind of turn it up and turn it down where needed and things, and so collaborative because I had worked with Marcus as a producer. I produced Flipping for Christmas, so I got to work with him on that, and I'd worked with Vanessa about 3 times before as well. So I really had a good understanding of what the two of them would bring, which was just phenomenal energy and really excited to kind of find their characters. And I think they both understand so much about what their personalities and what their energies resonate with their fans. So it was really great to kind of be a part of that. But obviously, they're two people that need no introduction in this genre.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just making the connection. I looked at your IMDb. I said, "What? I know all the movies you worked on." I said, "Oh yeah, they worked with Marcus on that one and with Vanessa on that one." Like the
Yeah,
connection
a
made
lot
it
of
work.
a lot of repeat, and even some of the supporting cast, like I'd worked with Ron Lee before, I'd worked with Kate Drummond before, and
Mhm.
things like that. So it was great to have some familiar faces on the project for sure.
Yeah, and I love knowing funny behind the scenes moments. Do you have a favorite story from filming?
It's tough. I think the whole experience was so fun because we were all kind of up there while we were
Mhm.
filming. Some of us up there for about 5 or 6 weeks with prep and filming and things. And so it kind of turned into like a bit of a winter camp in a
Mhm.
sense where people went skiing and snowboarding on weekends. It was during the Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary, and a bunch of us were kind of chatting and kind of sharing. Catherine Greenwood is in a comedy troupe called Women Fully Clothed, and with an actress named Robin Duke, who was on Saturday Night Live. And so Catherine was sharing a lot of like Robin stories from SNL while we were filming, and so it was really just an amazingly collaborative, because you hear these stories when people shoot like the Odyssey, and when you shoot Oppenheimer, where there was
Mhm.
like no phones on set and no chairs, and this kind of like very intense working environment. I think that there was very little cell service, when we were there. It wasn't like we were had like no phones on set, but there was very little cell service. A
Mhm.
lot of the film takes place outside. It wasn't like there was a tremendous amount of chairs and benches in the middle of the woods or on ski hills. And so I think that through this experience, by nature versus by design, it turned into a very collaborative set and experience, because everyone was, very focused, because there wasn't a lot of outside distractions. I would say like the closest Walmart was like an hour away. Like we were very remote. And so because of that, everyone was so present, making the film, and it was a tremendous experience because of that. And I think that just the tone, and everyone kind of just like having lunch together in this little cabin, it felt like we were all at like winter camp, like making a
Mhm.
movie. And so
Yeah.
that environment was really something special.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned SNL 50, so now I can really place it last year when it was shot. I know exactly like
Yeah,
what moment of the
absolutely.
year. I love that. And what you mentioned the 13 to 14 days production
Mhm.
like schedule. Is it 14 days straight, or like is there you take the weekend off, or
Yeah,
how's
we
that work?
usually take the weekends off.
Okay.
We usually start on a Tuesday, and because Monday is kind of like the last prep day where everyone's
Mhm.
kind of like present at the lodge, and we were kind of getting ready and things like that. We had some table reads and stuff with the actors, because Vanessa lives in Los Angeles, and I can't remember if Marcus was in Toronto or Alberta, but a lot of people were kind of traveling in for it. So we did a big table read on that
Mhm.
Sunday. Kind of everyone traveled up the Monday, and then we started shooting. I think our first crack at it was we did 4 days, and then kind of
Mhm.
took 2 days off and kind of repeated that. So I think we had 5 days and then 4 days and things like that to kind of put it into a 3 week kind of block.
Mhm.
But kind of, 13, 14 days kind of between that, with kind of taking the weekends off.
Yeah.
So
And you film like in blocks, so every scene at the in, and no matter what they are in the movie, you shoot all of them, and then you move to a different location, or how does
Yeah,
that
I
work?
think for some of it we did that for sure. I think we bounced around a little bit more because some happen at night and some happen during the day, and
Mm,
other actors are coming in and out for scenes. The film was definitely shot not in sequence.
yeah.
We ended with all the skiing. That was kind of the last little bit of the day when we were kind of doing the skiing and the tobogganing, and we did like Joanne's office. That was kind of all near the end, which is funny. It's like the beginning of the movie was shot
Mhm,
last.
mhm.
Uh, but it's interesting kind of mapping it out. We had to change a day a little bit for weather as well, just because it was too much snow, which is usually not a problem.
Yeah.
Uh, but just kind of being flexible with that, which the actors were great and things like that about kind of accommodating the as things that we couldn't change.
Yeah.
We also have quite a few scenes at night with the lanterns and things like that. So just making sure that, when you're filming a movie, you have to give, not that you have to, well, you have to, but you also want to give people a good turnaround time before when
Mhm.
they're needed back on set. So if we're shooting late into the night, then that usually kind of pushes the start date of the next day. And so
Yeah.
you just kind of making sure that, everyone's staying on schedule and things. So, yeah.
That was my next question. You mentioned night. What was the latest you guys were shooting the movie? Because a
Oh,
lot of
it's
night scene.
definitely, I would say, in and around like 3 to 5 in the morning. I think, in that pocket is that lantern scene went quite late.
Mhm,
And to try to achieve those lanterns, lighting them all, at the same time, or, you'd have to light them so quickly because by the time you lit the first one, you have to have the last one lit very quickly because
mhm.
then the first one will want to go up, but then the next one's not ready. And so
Yeah.
trying to make sure we could kind of time that out. It
Mhm,
was also very very cold overnight,
mhm.
and sometimes the cold wouldn't allow the lantern to float properly.
Yeah.
But I think that was the latest night for sure. I think that, but it was such a beautiful night with the
Mhm,
lanterns
mhm.
that I think that everyone was so in this kind of Christmas spirit as we had kind of so many background and we had Kate Drummond. I think that was her first day, and she's so full of life. And so when she's up at that podium giving her mayor speech,
Mhm.
it was a real kind of pep to everybody who was there as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah. And it's great to you finish Christmas in December, and then 2 months later you get to do Christmas all over again. So
yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
pretty great.
It really kind of, I we joked that my wife and I kept our Christmas tree up until the movie was wrapped. So we also took our Christmas tree down. I think that year, first week of March,
Yeah.
because we wanted to kind of stay in the Christmas spirit while we were
Mhm.
prepping. And so when I was prepping at home in January leading up to the film, we kept all of our Christmas decorations up and things like that. And so it was fun kind of pulling some inspiration. My mother's high school best friend made all the glass ornaments in the film, and so it was different way. We have some of her ornaments on our tree, and so when I was prepping and when we're going through prep, I was like showing the production designer like, oh, I would love for it to look like this, and
Mhm.
so on all the Everwood trees were fake trees, all the Linden Lodge trees are real trees. All the ornaments at the office are plastic. All the ornaments at Linden Lodge are glass or wood. And so trying to give that kind of like texture of the
Mhm.
differences between the two Christmases and things like that. And so it helped to kind of stay in that Christmas spirit throughout January and February.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And looking back now that the movie has premiered,
Mm.
is there one moment that perfectly captures what you wanted Snowbound for the Holidays to be?
Yeah, I
Mm,
think a lot of it was just doing those things practically. I
mhm,
really was trying to figure out a way how to toboggan, how to ski, how to light lanterns, and do them all practically. I'm really proud of when I was in the eighth grade. I went snowboarding for the first time, and I actually fell off the ski lift and hurt myself, but I was okay. But it kind of deterred me from wanting to ski or snowboard
yeah.
again.
Mhm,
And when Vanessa gets onto the ski lift for the first time and has that kind of hesitation, that nervousness, really inspired by true events. I had to tackle my fear of going onto a ski lift for the first time since that accident during the film. And so, we got this very large crane to kind of follow her up on the ski lift and kind of be with her, almost like you're on a roller coaster and you're trying to reach the top. And that's how I feel going on these things. And so that was a sequence that we drew out and mapped out, and it's almost exactly the way we drew it out in the film, and feeling her kind of get on that ski lift and kind of overcoming some of her fears, and it really mirrored with my childhood. So that was probably a scene I was very proud of.
It's funny that you mentioned that scene because I replayed it so many times because as someone who also was scared when the ski
Mm-hmm.
lift was coming up, I replayed it so many times to see how she did it, how she played it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny that, that you mentioned
And
it.
it was so much fun because we were able to do it for real and have
Yeah.
her go on. But the funny part is once she's kind of scooped up into the
Hmm.
little bucket, it
Hmm.
takes 15 minutes to go around. And so once she's kind of up, you're kind of like, okay, she's just going to try to ride that, reset 15 minutes, and then she just kind of rides the thing by herself and kind of comes back down and jumps off, and we got to kind of reset and go again and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun to kind of map out and,
Yeah.
and have Vanessa kind of ride the rails, if you will, during the takes.
Didn't even think of that. It's true. You have to wait for her to come back to do it again.
Absolutely.
It's really funny. And can we, you might not be able to say, maybe allowed to say, but can we expect any future collaborations, collaborations with Hallmark? Um,
Yeah, I hope so for sure. It was such a blast, and I was really pumped. Both on the Snowbound side and a little Christmas market side, to
mhm,
have kind of two films that I was involved in on the Christmas July lineup, and
mhm,
so would love to do more, and I've been so grateful to do so many films with them in various ways and collab. And I think us and the team at Vortex and all the cast that has been veterans. I think that what's amazing is that they've created this real fun genre to work in,
mhm,
as we've joked, very similar to that Marvel and Star Wars kind of vibe,
mhm,
that it's really exciting. And I look at actors like Marcus and Vanessa, and I really put them in the Avengers lineup of
mhm.
Hallmark, of really amazing kind of
Yeah,
performers in that space.
yeah, and we had not seen them in a new movie for a while, so I like that it brought them back into
Mm-hmm.
for a new movie. I like to well, two more questions actually.
Yeah.
You now have your is it your own production company that
I
you have
do,
now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Since shooting Snowbound for the holidays, I stepped down from Vortex to kind of pursue some other things.
Mhm,
And though it was amazing collaborating with them for so many years, and we're all still very close and
mhm,
good friends. My wife and I were really interested in doing some movies together, and though
mhm,
we collaborated a little bit here and there, I produced a movie called Operation Nutcracker. She was in that and things as well. So it was great to kind of collaborate in various ways. But we wanted to try to write some movies together, and we wrote a film called Be My Love,
mhm.
about a beekeeper and a private chef kind of falling in love, and we filmed that in the fall of 2025, and it just came out on GAC in the US and
Mhm.
Super Channel in Canada. And so we were really pumped to kind of release our first movie this spring.
Yeah, yeah. I have to go back now and watch that one. I missed it when it
Yeah,
premieres on
absolutely.
JC, but I'll definitely go back.
Yeah.
And my final question, I might be putting you on the spot. I don't know. Do you have a favorite Hallmark movie that you have not worked in on, if you have seen one that you've not worked on?
That's tough. That's tough. I'm not sure. I know that there's so many, and I
Yeah.
I always kind of get the titles because they kind of blur. But I think,
Hmm.
and correct me if I'm wrong, A Bit More Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be really up there. I thought that was just
Hmm.
incredible. And often throughout my career, I'll find a movie that I didn't work on, and that I discovered, and I'll often call whether the producers or the director and say, I think you did just such a phenomenal job with that movie.
Yeah.
And I know Netflix came out one a couple of years ago called Hot Frosty.
Hmm.
I called the producers, and I was like, very, very funny film.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Bradley Walsh as a director who also had a movie on Christmas in July.
Yeah.
And so there's so many amazing, talented films out there, and I think it's great. I think that there's such an energy behind the films that make them really exciting. And I think that there's certain filmmakers and directors and collaborators or stars that it's like, oh, Cat Barella's in it. I'm in, and
Yeah.
I think there's so many different kind of performers and actors that really, and directors that really kind of bring that level where it's like, well, if Andrew Walker's in it, then I 100% guarantee it's going to be a great one,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And there's a follow-up to Biltmore Christmas coming out this Christmas.
Yeah,
So can't wait
absolutely.
to see a
And I
second
think
one.
it's cool, very, very
Yeah.
similar to, like a Star Wars where you say,
Hmm.
hey, there's more to the story to tell.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and you really get to kind of dive in. And it's nice to kind of see them, explore the world with
Mhm.
some sequels and things like that
Yeah.
as well. So,
Yeah. Who
yeah.
knows? Maybe one day we'll get a Snowbound for the holidays too. And
Yeah,
we'll see them how
absolutely.
they're
We
taking
joke all
over
the
now.
time. I heard Marcus and Vanessa on a podcast about like a northern Nordic spa, like kind of movie about the next level of where the lodge would go. And
Yeah.
being a big Nordic spa fan myself, it sounds like a pretty good sequel. So, but it would be great. I always joke as well. I think Christmas Island. I'm a big fan of how that film turned out, and I would love
Mhm.
to see where those characters are today as a sequel as
Yeah.
well. So manifesting those sequels as
For
well.
sure. For sure. I'd love to see all of them.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you guys for watching. You can stream Snowbound for the Holidays on Hallmark Plus if you haven't seen it, if you want to rewatch it. I'll definitely do that this Christmas season. And yeah, thank you so much, Christopher, for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.